There's a lot of men out there who don't know how to authentically connect with other human beings. They're not even trying to wheel and deal. They're not manipulative. They're not unethical. They're
Right.
not hurting anybody. They're actually very sensitive to other people. They're very sensitive to the idea of hurting anybody. They are very careful to be nurturing toward other people in that regard, at least safe. They are very risk assessment focused. They're always tracking risks, and that actually makes them pretty tired. So they tend to stay out of deeper relationships because there's so many variables there. It's not a smart move. That'd be a lot of drama. So maintaining low risk in every area of their personal life allows them to take great risks in their professional life and chase dreams. They'll do things anybody else would be too afraid to do. So the idea of I'm afraid of relationships doesn't even track for them. But it's massive risk assessment that when you go up, you don't take the risks personally, relationally, to share with somebody. There's those meetings and people are talking about their goals and their thoughts, and they're sitting there going, why the hell are people sharing these things? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And
They're
then,
getting
or they'll be the
uncomfortable.
leader who has read a book to say, you ask your people about their personal life, and you're like, oh, how you doing? I'm doing on this trip. Oh, great, tell me about it. And they can at least kind of like play the game, but then they don't reciprocate. They don't share anything about themselves, so they're entirely unrelatable. And their team goes, this guy never shares anything about himself. He never has anything going on. He doesn't really follow up as in the way that I would expect. And I don't feel a connection with him. He's not mean and he pays me well, but I don't have a connection with him. Well, this other company's offering me a little bit more money. Why not? Why not jump ship? The loyalty isn't there. They don't hate you. You just didn't build the relationships. A lot of these guys are bewildered at the end of the day and say, why does nobody be my friend? What is working for other people that isn't working for me? Why am I alone in my penthouse apartment with making, $50 million a year? Why am I doing this? But I'm drinking myself to sleep at night because I'm so lonely. I've never hurt anybody. But why am I so alone when everybody else seems so happy? That's the guys that we're aiming at right now, right? And unfortunately sometimes they get married and their wives, right? They're crying themselves to sleep in the bed. High performers are some of the loneliest people on earth until they learn that skill set to actually bond with other people.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I think we're seeing a lot more of this nowadays. And we're seeing more and more single parent houses, which which is very challenging, I would imagine, for confidence, especially for men. So trusting people in relationships without that partner, especially a dad around, is a challenge. I've seen that a lot. Um, and I also think that the depth of relationships is a fear of failure. So they're scared, and they're scared of failing at something. And the reality is, I say stuff all the time that occasionally I'm like, did I share too much? Maybe I did. And the older I get, the less and less I care about that, because it's the closer and closer to who I am. And the more I put that out there, the deeper the relationships become. The more people listening to us know that this is a real show, not some full of bullshit show where we're trying to act like something that we're not. This is about us learning about each other, sharing good ideas, and trying to help people find a better version of themselves, just like we are in the process of doing.
Right. Absolutely. Most high performers don't even have a functioning framework for who to trust and why. And they don't understand how to let people into those degrees, right? If there's levels of trust that you have to understand and you have to bring people in. Then there's phrases that if you grow up in what we call a securely attached family, where your family practices good social skills, you care for each other's needs, you trust each other, you are consistent and reliable with each other, you show up honestly in the relationship, and you build that depth. If your parents train you in that, you talked about how the silent generation really didn't train people in that. Neither did the boomers, unfortunately. That's why we're in the mix that we're in. But when you have a family, like I'm raising my kids, right? Um, to build that intimacy, to build that and just talk and trust. When my son says, "Dad, I want this toy," I don't say, "I'm not going to buy you that toy," or "Go away from me," or just like, "Oh, right here, take a toy," right? No, I say, "Talk to me about why that toy means something to you. What are you thinking there?" Well, this and this and this. Okay. You know what? Why don't we find a pathway for you to be able to earn that toy? You don't have to earn my love, but if you want that, let's find a way for you to earn it. You're gonna have to learn how to earn your way in the world growing up, and that's cool. So let's talk about that. What are some things that you can do that would reach the value of that? And then I will purchase that for you. Well, Dad, I can do this and this and this. I'll do the dishes, every day for a week or something. Cool, buddy. That sounds like an awesome deal. I shake his hand. That sounds great. By all means, if you do that, I will buy you that toy. And then he reaches that marker and he does it. And I say, you know what? I'm going to buy you that toy and I'm going to do this extra thing for you. And I give a little bonus to him, right? And it's an actual care. But then I give him a hug and I say, buddy, I'm so proud of you for following through on this. That was incredible. You did great. You saw this through. Look at how you're growing. This is fantastic, right? And I'm training him that way. That's called secure attachment, by the way, when you're authentic like that. And I'm actually building that moment with him and that connection. I don't get everything right, and I don't have to, because when I get it wrong, I can go to him and say, buddy, hey, I got to be square with you. I was wrong with you the other day. I said something wrong. I'm sorry that I was grumpy in this regard. I'm sorry. Did that hurt your feelings? Okay, here's what was happening. It's not an excuse. Here's why I did it, so you understand. And then here's what I'm going to do to make it right. Right, going forward, we're going to take care of each other this way. Secure attachment. When you have that, you have a framework for how to open up with other people. You could do like we did earlier, like I shared with you, like securely attached guys out there. They don't need me to train them and say, hey, go to your wife, share a problem, and then share how the problem feels, and then share a solution and ask for her feedback. He's going to go. He's going to tell his wife, hey, babe, can I run something by you? It's kind of bothering me. Yeah, sure. And he'll share and he'll say this, and then she'll say, oh, have you thought about this? He'll go, that's great. Thank you. And then they just roll forward. It's like that because he's been doing that with his dad. He's been doing that with his mom. He's been doing that with his sister his whole life. So he gets there and he just shares it with her. This is secure attachment. And there's about 50% of adults with not that here in America. So about half of the people listening to the show don't have that, to be honest with you. It's pretty sad.
We were, I was at a conference probably a year ago, and I'm riding in a car on the way to the airport. Excuse me. On the way to the airport, and I'm with an older guy who's potentially going to sell his business, and he's asking me a ton of questions because we buy businesses, and that's something that we've done. And so he's asking me a ton of questions, and I turned to him and I asked him, I said, have you ever asked your family what they want to do? Like, you're saying you don't want to retire. You're saying that you don't see yourself stepping away. You don't, what does your wife want to do? And he goes, I've never asked her that question. And I said, that would be a really good start to identify what it is that she wants to do. Well, she's got her own thing and she's doing, and I said, all that's good. What about your kids? Are there things that your kids would like to do with you in the next? And money's not an issue. You guys have made a lot of money. You have more than you need. Like, what are some of the, I just asked like this. I mean, if I could tell you, these were the 2 or 3 simplest questions one could ask. And the level of perplexity and then awareness to go, huh, I've never asked those questions. And that was about a year ago. I heard that individual is now shopping the business and thinking about something different. And it's interesting. I wonder if they had that level of depth in the conversation with their family. I doubt it, but it's definitely a challenge. And I love what you talked about with the kids. I have 2 sons, and I think one of the challenges with boys are how old is your oldest?
7.
7. So with 14 and 17, they'll be 15 and 18 in a month. I'm at the point where they're separating to create that transition to the next chapter. There has to be this, I'm going to be a guy. And so therefore I can come to dad when I really need him, which I'm seeing, but I'm also getting the shutdown on dad's opinions are funny, or you always go too deep, dad, or we don't need to do everything you do, or whatever it is. Like, it's the teenager thing, right? And but I think understanding, just like you talked about with our wives, understanding how they feel loved, what they need in the relationship, it always starts with giving. And so one of the things I've tried to do in my life is focus heavily on what that individual child needs, because they're completely different from each other. And one will ask me for something every day. One will never ask me for anything. But if the one that never asks for anything, if I don't challenge him, even when he does, he doesn't feel like he earned it. Like, I have to actually have a little banter. He's a results oriented individual. We have a little thing that we do. And I'm like, and I end up folding, but I let him feel like we had a little tussle. And whereas the other child is more of, hey, can I do this? Can I have that? Would you do that? Would you do this? And then he gets several things more than the oldest. And the oldest is always looking at me going, how come it's so easy for him? And I'm like, dude, he asks. He just asks. Like you don't ask. And
Mhm.
so understanding them is part of that relationship building. And I hope that that's something like you're doing with your children, that they take into their relationships and gather that depth and gather that trust, because it's so imperative to build the strength and depth versus the width of just knowing a lot of people.
And that all of that is what high performers usually have never experienced. It's one thing that drives them onto the dopamine and cortisol pathways. I will be stressed out and my cortisol will drive me. There's no one coming to help me. I will do everything myself. I will be a one man business and it will be fantastic. And I will work 18 hours a day for 15 years and I will build a $1 trillion business and I will have no friends and I will be miserable and drink a lot of alcohol and I'll have a wife who doesn't speak to me, and that'll be my life. That's just what it is. And until they learn that this is even possible, like you open that person's eyes, you said, "Well, what does your wife want?" He went, his brain clicked, the grinding of like a car that's not shifting into gear, and he was like, his brain probably said, "People don't ask each other that question." That's probably what his brain said, like, does not compute. Why would I ask my wife what she wants? And not in a bad way, just legitimately, why would I ask her what she wants? Well, because she's your wife and because she has a huge say in this and because it impacts her life deeply. And I can just ask her? Is she gonna like be mean to me for asking her? No, she's probably going to be happy that you asked her. And then you're going to have a conversation about what you can both build together. Well, what if she's unreasonable? Well, then you would tell her, "Hey, I don't feel that this is reasonable. Can we find something that's a little more reasonable?" People will do that. Well, people that love you will do that. Yes. That is exactly the process. It's like mind blowing because they've never experienced it. You take them all the way back to that childhood moment of people saying, "No, get out of here. You don't get a toy. I'm not buying you that crap. You don't deserve that." Or, "No, get out of my face. You don't need that anymore. No, come on, leave me alone." They go back to that and they say, "Well, that's what my wife's going to say. Hey, babe, what do you think about me retiring?" "No, get out of here. I don't want to listen to that." "Yes, you should retire. You should sit at home and you should be my husband and you should just pay attention to me and watch movies with me." Right? "You know what? I don't even think this is a good, you're going to retire. Well, why don't we just get a divorce? Because I don't want to spend more time around you." Right? They run through all the risks in their head of what she could say, and it paralyzes them to even think about asking her. So then here comes Scott. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy, your wife loves you. Why don't you ask her what she thinks about running a business? Why don't you ask her what she thinks about the money? It sounds like the most dangerous thing in the world. I would rather close a bear trap on my own head than do that. But then you know what? You know what's magical, and you've seen this, Scott. When they actually go and ask, people respond so well. People love to be treated like a human being. People love to be treated with respect. They love to be asked questions. They love to be invited in. They love to know what you're thinking. They love to talk with you. They love to be involved in a decision. They don't want to take over the decision usually. Maybe your parents did, but not this person who cares about you. They just want to work with you and have a decision that feels okay to them too, and then you work together to build it. And the high performing guys I work with, man, the execs, they're like, "I had no idea I could just talk to my kids." Right? I haven't spoken to my son in 2 years. Does he hate you? No, we just don't speak. Well, okay, could you call him and say, "Hey, son, this will sound a little weird, but I have found that I really would like to have a relationship with you, and I haven't had much of one with you. I don't know how to build this yet, but I'm here to ask two questions. Number one, are you open to a deeper relationship, whatever that may look like? And number two, what would that look like? What does that even look like to you? What tell me what an ideal relationship for us might look like. Do you have any ideas on that? If so, we can figure out how to get there." Right? And usually kids are like, "Dad, are you drunk?" But then, like, they open up a little bit and they're like, "You know what? This could be cool." Like, daughters, especially, they're like, "Yes." And they unroll their list of things that they want in the relationship with you. And dads are blown away by by the guidance that these kids will start issuing them into taking charge in that relationship. So it's amazing when you invite the right people in, how your life just gets so much better. So much better.
Yeah, I think a lot of providers, what we would call good dads of the past, people that just put their head down, worked for their family, did whatever they needed, never let their family down,
Yep.
paid the bills, helped them go to college, do whatever. You know, they're the workhorse climbing the mountain with all the packs. They're the dads now that let their kids bring all the stuff down to the beach and then they carry it all back, which I'm not a fan of. I made my boys carry everything they brought to the beach because I will not be their camel. But I will do it when they need me, but I am not doing it at the beach. Um, but I think what happens a lot of times is you play a role in a relationship, and sometimes you play that role so well that you have to realize that it's like an actor who has to come out of that role. Like, you cannot be that character throughout your entire life or you will be empty and deserted. And what happens is they only see you as that, and you've only shown them that. And it might have been the most important thing for them. I had a conversation. It was a great conversation. We do a Valentine's Day event for our practice, and 150, 200 women all come out on Valentine's Day, have a beautiful lunch. Excuse me. We have it's a super fun day. We do it all over in different markets and different offices. But I was at the one locally here in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I got into two conversations back to back where the wives were like, you know, all my husband wants to do is talk about the cost of he wants to buy a new car, but he can't just buy a new car. We have $2 million in an account with your company, and this guy will not buy the car that he wants. And all I said was, you know, I understand, and it's painful. They're so analytical that they're hand wringing, and it just makes her so frustrated, right? And I said that probably makes you very frustrated. She goes, yeah, it does. And I said, he's been the provider for the family, and he's had to go to war in his brain to make sure everything worked his entire life. And now you want him to come off $60,000 like it's nothing. He still sees $60,000 like it was 30 years ago. And in your brain, he sees that as showing, just so you know, he sees that as showing you love. He's not doing a good job of it. You see it as the opposite. And she was like, oh my gosh. Both of the ladies were like just simply mind blown. Again, you probably see this every day in your practice. And then 10 minutes later, I'm having a conversation with another one. She's like, we're picking out all the things in the new house, we're downsizing, and we got in an argument about the furnishings, like the granite countertop or this, and it was like $10,000, Scott. And I said the exact same thing I just said. I was like, well, it worked before. Let's try it again. And I said it again. And she said, he came to me the next morning and he apologized. And he said, whatever I want, I can have. That it's just really hard for him to come off of this. And that's the difference. So the difference between the two men are, one allowed that vulnerability. He wasn't weak. He wasn't soft. He was just honest. And that authenticity allows them to understand each other and to move forward. And it's such a powerful thing.
This is the key piece right here. Men are meant to go to war, and we're meant to put on our armor, and we're meant to go to war. And some men never ever ever learn to take their armor off. That's what we would call that avoidant attachment style, where you've attached you only know how to relate to other people with your armor on. So you imagine a guy going out fighting his wars, then he comes home, he trumps in the house with his muddy boots, and then he wears his armor at the dinner table, and then he lays down in his bed at night, he wears his armor. He's trying to make love to his wife while wearing his armor. He's bathing and showering in his armor still. And then he gets up and he goes to work the next day in his armor. And that's why nobody can relate to him, because he looks like a crazy person, and no one can snuggle him, and he looks very uncomfortable because he is very uncomfortable. But he's waiting for the enemy to kick in his door and stab him with a spear while he's sleeping. So he's just in his armor. He doesn't trust anybody, but that's how he takes care of his family. That's how he cares for everybody around him, is to never ever ever take his armor off. What I teach men is, when you are ready to take your armor off, you understand that the door is locked. You understand the people in the room with you are safe and do not have a knife. They're not going to stab you. And you can take your armor off selectively with your family and with your friends. And then when it's time to put the armor back on, you put it back on, you go back out, you do your war. But you learn to take the armor off. That's the work. That's the attachment work here that we've got to do to train these men to be able to take their armor back off, and the women as well.
If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.